What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Combat Sports Media YouTube channel. And before I go any further, please press the like and subscribe button if you already haven't done so. Because that's just, plenty of you guys watch my shit, but for some reason, most of you don't press the like button. I greatly appreciate it if you guys started doing that. And let's get to the topic at hand. Enough with the bullshit. So July 23rd, we got another fight on the docket. That's right, we got a good one. It's July 23rd in Chicago, Broner versus Figueroa. That's Omar Figueroa. And maybe I'm kind of exaggerating a little bit by saying it's going to be a good one. It may be a good one, but if this happened 8 years ago, it would have been a good one. But right now, let's talk about Broner first. Now, I'm going to have some controversial takes probably in many people's opinions, but it is what it is. That's why I have my channel, right? So I can say my shit and speak my piece without anyone trying to cut me off or do any of that fucking bullshit. So now Broner, a lot of people are already forgetting that back in 2011, 2012, he was the shit, right? He was branded as the next big thing by the networks and so on. And his performances were backing that up for the most part. Back when he was at 130, 135, he defended his title against, guys that were half the size of him at 130. Former Olympian Vicente Escobedo was actually his last one. He didn't even bother making weight for that fight. And he was just TKOing and breaking these guys. And he moved up to 135, and after vacating the WBO 130-pound belt, and he beat Antonio DeMarco for the WBC lightweight title right away. And he put on a virtuoso performance. I was at that fight in Atlantic City at the Boardwalk Hall. It was November of 2011 or 12. And he put on a virtuoso performance, and he TKO'd him, knocked him out. He actually knocked him the fuck out, you know what I'm saying? To this day, that's his best performance when you consider the level of opposition and the way he made it look. At the time, Antonio DeMarco was coming off knockout wins over Jorge Linares, who 10 years later was actually a champion at that very same weight. When Lomachenko beat him, almost 10 years later. And he also came off of a fantastic win that lasted about 30 seconds against John Molina. So he knocked out or stopped undefeated John Molina in 30 seconds. And then he knocked out and destroyed Jorge Linares in devastating fashion in a great fight. And I believe it was the 11th round, if I'm not mistaken. So, and he was clearly the best lightweight in the world at the time, Antonio DeMarco. And Broner moved up and destroyed him. Put on a great performance. And at that time, he also went on to fight Gavin Reese after, short, and then after that he ended up, moving up and fucking up his career. But I'm saying all this to say that, in my opinion, when we talk about the past 15 years, I think Adrien Broner is the best lightweight I've seen. Maybe in my actually entire life. When we talk about watching the sport, he's probably the best 135-pounder I've seen with my own eyes. Yes, there have been plenty of fighters that have accomplished more at the weight after Broner, because Broner didn't stay at the weight long at all. He moved up very quickly. We had guys like Vasily Lomachenko, Mikey Garcia. All these guys moved up. Unified belts. Broner, even though he defeated what was deemed the true lightweight champion at the time, in Antonio DeMarco, he never ended up unifying. But honestly, that wasn't even in demand at the time because people didn't even care about seeing those fights, necessarily. I mean, they did and they didn't. I mean, you had Ricky Burns out there. They were all guys that, let's just say, weren't compelling matchups because Broner was just that big of a favorite over them. Which is part of the reason why he ended up moving up and challenging Paulie Malignaggi for the WBA welterweight belt, because nobody wanted to see any of those fights at 35 anyway, even though in hindsight it may have been a mistake. We have guys like Lomachenko, Mikey Garcia, and later on, even Teofimo Lopez, you want to throw him in there. We had some good lightweight fighters after Broner. However, I believe Broner, that version of Broner, would destroy and was better than those fighters that I just mentioned at the weight. I know and I understand that later on, Mikey Garcia fought a shell of Broner and dominated him. We all knew and could see that Broner didn't come to win, he came to survive, or made the choice to survive after the first or second round. And, that's kind of been, but that's not the Broner that I'm talking about, and that's not the Broner that we had at 35. After the Maidana fight, his whole psyche shattered. His confidence completely left him. And it's very obvious. He hasn't been the same since. He doesn't walk around with the same bravado. He doesn't even talk the same. He's just not the same. It's just that simple. He mentally, not physically, but mentally, was never able to recover from that Maidana loss, in my opinion. That's very apparent and very clear to me. Pretty easy to tell. And, since the Maidana fight, which is already almost, 10 years ago, his career has had some ups, but it's been mostly down. He never went back to regaining the status that he had as a lightweight champion. He's just steadily gone downhill, and in recent years, on top of that, he's just been very, very inactive. I can't even remember the last time he won a fight, to be honest with you. He had a draw with Jesse Vargas. He had a loss to Manny Pacquiao. Oh, and then I guess after the loss to Manny Pacquiao, he took like 2 years off, I think. And then he won a tune-up fight against another inactive fighter that was like 14-0 or something. Okay. So yeah, I guess, and that was already a year and a half ago, if I'm not mistaken. So again, extremely inactive. His life outside the ring seems to just keep spiraling more and more out of control as time goes on. Kind of like his boxing career. Just some specs on him. He's about, I guess, 5'6", 5'7". 34-4-1 with 24 knockouts. He's at age 33. His best weight right now is probably 140, but I believe they're going to be fighting at 147. And just some stylistical things with Broner. He's a flat-footed, quick-handed fighter with elusive upper body. And with good punching power at 140 and below, but not above 140. Above 140, he just has average punching power. It's not a deficit, but it's not. It's nothing it's nothing special, which for him is a big deal because that was a big part of his game was his punching power. Down at 130, 135. So let's move on from Broner. He's a fighter that I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with anyway. But I'm glad I pointed out a lot of the things that I pointed out in the beginning, because just in case people forgot. Now, moving on to Omar Figueroa, kind of similar in the sense that his best weight was at 135. He actually became the WBC champion after Broner moved up and vacated the belt at that time, 10 years ago. So Broner moved up, vacated, and Omar, I guess, fought for a vacant version of it. Obviously won. He was, a hot young fighter at the time. Had a war with the Japanese guy, Nihito Arakawa, I believe his name was. Very tough guy. Was a slugfest that he came on top on, obviously. And then he ended up moving up in weight after defending his title like 1 or 2 times. The other one was against Jerry Belmontes in a fight that I didn't even bother seeing. Honestly, aside from the fact that Omar has an extremely exciting style and that he, to this day, is actually one of my favorite fighters to watch, he squandered his career for the most part, and he definitely didn't live up to the potential that it could have been, because mainly due to inactivity, straight up, due to inactivity. The times that he got in the ring, the opposition was always decent or good, and the fights were always decent or good and exciting. The problem was they were 2 years apart every fucking time. Like, what the fuck? You can't build a fan base like that. And your career can't have momentum like that, So that's his problem, and it's mainly due to injury. Mainly with the hands. Again, very exciting style. Definition of a volume puncher. Very tough, physically. And mentally too, even though lately he doesn't seem to have the same mental toughness. He has a lot of good wins. It's just people forget because he's just so inactive. He beat John Molina in a great, close, highly contested fight. He beat Ricky Burns back in the day. He beat Antonio DeMarco as well. At like a catch weight of like 150 or some shit because he couldn't make the weight. He destroyed Robert Guerrero in like 3 rounds. Nobody ever did Robert Guerrero like that to this day. Made him temporarily retire. And so, yeah, of course that fight, that barn burner with Nihito Arakawa down at 135. Durable Japanese dude. I don't know how he took that kind of punishment and went the whole distance. But yeah, and Omar is 32, so they're relatively the same age, Broner and Omar Figueroa. Omar's record is 28-1 with 19 knockouts. He was undefeated for a very long time. He lost to Abel Ramos and Yordanis Ugas at 147, mainly due to the fact that he's not a natural welterweight. Yeah, so I guess that's all I gotta say about them fighters. Just some specs with Omar. He's about maybe 5'8" in height. So both of these guys are not welterweights, but I believe the fight is going to be at welterweight because they don't have a choice. Because neither of them can make anything below that. It seems like. This fight was actually scheduled originally at the Barclays Center back in 2018, and I believe the reason why it didn't happen is because Figueroa pulled out because of an injury. But it's happening now, and let's move on to the prediction. I believe, this, even though I believe this would have been a good fight and an exciting fight years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Now, I just think it's it still might be a pretty entertaining fight. I'm sure it's going to be. But I think Figueroa is definitely going to win without a doubt. And he might be in dominant fashion at that, because style-wise, this does not benefit Broner at all. I mean, Broner himself is a fighter that doesn't throw any punches in 2022. And you're putting him in with a bona fide volume puncher who is very durable, who's the same size as him. So it's just common sense for me. This is going to be a TKO, KO, or a unanimous decision win for Omar Figueroa. He's actually going to look really good. I think he's going to look really good because this is the perfect style for him. It always was, but even more so now. Well, there you have it, folks. Thank you for tuning in once again. And peace. See you guys soon.